everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Speckled Red Knits, the podcast. My name is Julianne. I am a knitter, crafter, occasional sewer from Cleveland, Ohio, and this is mostly a knitting podcast, and sometimes I talk about sewing, but it's mostly knitting, and I'm so happy to have you here today. I know I say it every episode, but thank you all for joining me and for subscribing and for leaving comments. It's so neat to kind of be able to make a community here on this little corner of the internet. I will leave links down below for you to find me on Ravelry and Instagram. You can also find a link for my Etsy shop where I sell project bags. And we have a link below for the knit along that we're doing right now. So if you've been around for a little bit, which is really not saying much because this podcast hasn't been around for that long. But if you were at least here for the last episode, you should know that we're doing a knit along right now. And the knit along is, I think on Ravelry it's called The Small Things. And it is a knit along aimed at knitting something small, like a pair of socks, a hat, gloves, mittens. Gloves are actually a lot of knitting, so I'd be impressed if you knit gloves. Maybe a cowl, something of that nature that you can either keep for yourself or put away to give as a gift for Christmas, which is what I'm doing for the knit along. There have already been quite a few posts in the Ravelry group. There's also a separate thread that is pattern ideas. I started the thread and I put in quite a few patterns. All the patterns I put in are free, and people have continued to add in some patterns. So if you are having trouble being inspired, feel free to take a pop over to that thread and pick something out to knit. The knit along only goes until November 1st, unless people need more time, but it's just meant to be kind of like just a small knit along with a small object that you can finish quickly. And there is a prize, and this is a prize. It is one project bag, one autumnal project bag of these cute little pumpkins from my shop. I just think it's so cute, this print. And although it was in my Halloween update, I think that it is still very fall bag. And I think it would be good for our knit along, since our knit along was in October and November. So if you want to be entered in the knit along, all you have to do is post in Ravelry. Just take a picture, post it in our Ravelry thread. Like I said, that'll be linked below. And just tell us what you made and what you're going to do with it. If you're keeping it for yourself, if you're gifting it, just make a short little post in Ravelry and you'll be entered to win this bag. And I'll probably put like some more goodies in it too, but that'll be a surprise. So again, if you want to be entered to win this bag, just knit something for a knit along. I'm really excited about all the posts that I've been seeing. They're so inspiring. Just to see everyone who's who are proactively making their Christmas gifts. I get to live vicariously because I will never be that person who knits proactively. So it's been a lot of fun to see all of your posts in the knit along thread. Aside from that, that's kind of all I have for the intro. And let's get into some finished objects. So my first finished object, which was finished very shortly after the last podcast, is my woolen honey sweater. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. She did it, she wrote the pattern for her local yarn shop, which is in Michigan, and it's called Woolen Honey. And also, I mean, it is wool and honey in a pattern. So lots of layers of apt naming going on. So in the last podcast, I think I just had like one sleeve left to do. And so I finished that pretty quickly. I was going to wear this sweater today because it has been rainy and gross out, and today it is 75 degrees. So I couldn't wear this. I mean, I could have, but I didn't want to. So this sweater has been on my bucket list of knits for a long time, and I just thought it was going to be so difficult. I thought that these slip stitches would be very difficult, and then I thought that because it was done on like garter stitch in the round, that it would like add another layer of being difficult. And it was definitely a pattern where like you have to follow along. It's not really a mindless knit. Like you really have to have the pattern in front of you, and like you need to know what line you're on. I will say that it gets a little more intuitive the more you go on. Like you kind of understand how, like how the honeycomb pattern works up, and you kind of like know what you're doing a little bit more, but you still definitely need to be following along. So I want to say it's pretty easy after you get past like this second repeat right here. It makes a lot more sense. And in general, not really difficult at all to do these like elongated drop stitches. They're really just like, it's like a yarn over, but you'll like wrap it around, depending on, like which stitch it is, you'll wrap it around several times to get these longer stitches, and they just get dropped. And that's all it is like a yarn over and a drop stitch. So not really difficult at all. So I know I said this in the last podcast, but if you wanted to knit this sweater, and you're like, that looks hard, it's really not. I think this sweater I know it wasn't meant to be a crop sweater. I didn't knit it as a crop sweater because, I don't know, that's just not the life I live. So I think the body is about, looking at it, I would say it's probably 14 inches, which is longer than she had it. I think I made the sleeves just a scotch longer. They look kind of weird flat like this because of all this ribbing, but once you put it on, I mean, it looks like a normal sleeve. What else can I say about this sweater? I knit this in Purl Soho. It is their base called Linen Quill, and I love this yarn. If you can see it a little bit, you can see this kind of like linen halo. So the linen doesn't take the dye really much or as well as the wool does. So the actual yarn is, I think it's like 50% wool, maybe it's like 70% wool, like 20% alpaca, and then like 10% linen. So it doesn't take the dye quite as well as the other fibers, and so you kind of get this halo. Like if you can see it right there, see how the linen kind of like pokes out a little bit? It just adds a lot of depth to it. I really like yarns that have like kind of like a heathered look to them. I just really like colors that have a lot of depth, that are like maybe not just a solid or like a tonal. I really like when yarns have that little bit of extra something in them. So I love all of the colors of Linen Quill. They're just, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. Like if I could only knit with one yarn for the rest of my life, it would be Linen Quill probably, even though it's a fingering weight yarn, and I don't really knit with fingering weight yarns that much. All of the colors of Linen Quill are beautiful, and this sweater only took, I think, 3 skeins, and I think Linen Quill is only normally like $17 the skein. And around this time of year, Purl Soho, they do they do like a 10% or 20% off sale. It might be of like all their Pearl Soho goods and yarns. So Pearl Soho is a yarn store in New York, and they have all kinds of yarns, but they also have their own line of Pearl Soho yarns. So it even makes it more affordable, and they're doing free shipping right now. So if you wanted to try this yarn, it's a great time to try it. So I want to say this probably came in under $50 for this sweater. The only other thing I can think to say is that this sweater is meant to have some positive ease. I did not choose, like when I look at it like this, it looks like it's really wide, but the yoke is deep. Like, where am I going with that? Like, this is a pretty deep yoke. Like, normally a yoke I want to say is maybe 8 inches, and I would say this yoke is probably like 12 or 14. So it kind of, you're not dividing the sleeve from the body until a lower point on your arm. And so even though it looks wider, it's kind of coming out like that. So it's kind of like a dolman sleeve. Not quite, but kind of like a dolman sleeve where the body is wider because it's like more attached to the yoke of the sweater. So if you knit this and you're like, this looks kind of big, that's probably why, and you shouldn't be alarmed because this fits great. I have a hard time judging ease when I knit sweaters because I typically don't want like 10 inches of positive ease, which is what a lot of sweater designers knit with now. So I always tend to like knit a sweater with not enough ease, and then I like don't totally love the way it looks. So I think I nailed it on this one. And I wish I was wearing this right now and it weren't so hot outside. But yeah, I'm really happy with this sweater, and I'm just so excited to have it. I think the only thing I didn't mention is that the color is called rhubarb. So if you want this sweater in this exact color and yarn, you just need to pick up some linen quill and rhubarb. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this. I'm so excited that it's done, and I can't wait to wear it. So my next finished object, I think I talked about on the last podcast. I can't really remember. We had some issues with the last podcast, and it just like wasn't loading. So I can't exactly remember when we actually filmed it and what I was working on then, because it came out much later after it was filmed. So I know I posted about these on Instagram, but these are my vanilla sock project that I worked on, and these are my Halloween socks. This yarn is called All Hallows Eve, and it's by Barnyard Knits. She does really lovely, kind of more muted shades, and I think she only has a couple of bases that she does. So she does do sock yarn, and I think she does DK, and I feel like she might have maybe 1 or 2 bases she does the sock yarn on. But this is obviously a Halloween color that she came out with. And let me just put it close up to the camera so you can kind of see all the different colors in there. It's kind of like a dark purple with little bits of like, it almost looks black, but I think it's just very, very dark purple. And then it kind of has little splashes of orange and green in there. I just thought it was nice that it was like this really kind of subtle Halloween shade. And I'm very excited to have these socks. I did the heels and toes. Let me just show you that. In this Madeline Tosh colorway called, I think it's called Optic. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, or something, a word similar to that. And normally I do not knit on socks like exclusively. Like I'm never just like, oh, I can't wait to go home and knit my sock. It's normally just a project that I keep around in case I'm like stuck in traffic, in case I forget my other knitting project. But I was excited to knit these socks because I love Halloween, and I just really wanted to have these for Halloween. And these have already been worn. I know that when other podcasters finish their objects, they try to podcast before they wear them. And that's not the life that I live. And so I already wore these, and they were a little bit stretched out, so I just got them a little bit wet and tossed them in the dryer. And yes, I do put my socks in the dryer. I don't wash them in the washing machine. I just wash them with a little bit of wool wash. I usually use Tuft Woolens. They're sock yarn, or I think she calls it sock soap. And it's just a bar of soap that has lanolin in it, and she has so many smells, and they smell great. So I usually wait until I have a bunch of dirty socks, and I wash them all in the sink, and then I wring them out pretty well. But I do put them in the dryer, because what the dryer does is it doesn't felt them, because they're superwash wools. I actually have one pair of socks. I did them in the Mondine base by Retrozaria, and that is not a superwashed yarn, and I always have to save them from certain death before I usually toss them in the dryer, and then I remember afterwards that I can't put that single pair in the dryer. But what the dryer does is it kind of tightens everything back up, because there's no elastic in here like there's elastic in your regular socks. And so what ends up happening is that, I don't know, they get a little floppy. But if they are superwashed, it's totally fine to put them in the dryer, and that's what I did. And I still think they look great, even after a wash and a toss in the dryer. So I'm excited to have these done, and I don't currently have another pair of socks on the needles, but I am enjoying this finished object. So the only work in progress that I have to show is this sweater that I'm knitting, and this is a cardigan that I've knit many times. Let me hold it up before I go into too much more detail. This is the sweater, and the pattern is called Edith, and I believe it is by Pam Allen. It is in a book that came out a long time ago. It was actually in my queue for years before I knit it, and I finally knit it, I think it was my senior year of college. I knit it, and so that would have been like 2013, no, not 2013, like 2017, 2018. And I knit it once and discovered it was a perfect cardigan for me, and then I knit it 4 more times. So the reason that I like this cardigan, and it's really hard to kind of see it right now because of the way it's constructed, but what I like about this sweater is that you knit it, and the way that you knit the body, and it's, it's just this long body piece. And then you get to the point where you get to the underarms, and the way that the shoulder seam is constructed is a 3-needle bind off. So what you do is you divide the stitches in half, and then you put half of those stitches for the back on, well, you could just go ahead and knit it right away, and you would knit that separately, and then the other half of the stitches get divided, and a quarter of the stitches are on the left side and a quarter of the stitches are on the right side, like so. So I put those on waste yarn, see? And then what ends up happening is once you have knit all these pieces separately for like the top part, you end up folding it kind of like this, and you end up, so it's going to be like a top part, not just this, because that wouldn't make any sense. But you end up doing this 3-needle bind off. And the reason that I like this cardigan so much is because you get like a lot of there's a lot of coverage up front. What I find with raglan cardigans is that the front piece is not as wide, and I don't even know how to explain this. But it kind of scrunches back when you wear it. So my issue is that when I wear cardigans, which I do often, a lot of times the bottom gets like pulled back because of my butt. And that doesn't happen with this cardigan because of the way the 3-needle bind off pulls the cardigan to the front. So if you have that problem, you probably love this cardigan because it just lays so nicely. Like it lays very differently than like a raglan increased cardigan does, just because of how strong that seam is right there. It just like always stays up front. Like it's never like getting scrunched back. I don't like that when like your cardigan gets scrunched all the way to the side and like you don't have like a sweater here. It's just like all scrunched back. Another thing that's nice about the 3-needle bind off is that it kind of looks like a vest, sort of, when you finish the bind off before you knit the sleeves. And so what's nice about that is that because it's kind of like the body looks like a rectangle, you get a lot of the sleeve that's already knit because it comes out to about right here. I want to say, like I said with the Wool and Honey, it's kind of like a dolman style sleeve where it's or like it's a drop shoulder. So the shoulder comes down to here and you have less sleeve that you have to knit when you do knit the sleeves. What is also nice about this is that this is knit on a size 9 needle. So this is a fast knit. So story time. I had actually already knit this sweater. And I knit it. I asked for the yarn for my birthday last year and I knit it like right after the holidays when I was done gift knitting for other people. And I changed, so the actual pattern, this little panel right here is done, it's like maybe like a broken rib, something like that. It's like a decorative rib that kind of goes up the side. And because I've knit this sweater so many times, like I can't keep knitting it like that, right? Because then I'd be like that weird person that has 5 of the same sweaters in a different color. And I made them, which is like, if you bought it at a store, like that's one thing. But it would be weird if I kept making the same sweater and it visually looked like the same sweater. So I changed it up. I don't want to like give out the numbers that are on the pattern, but I want to say, just looking at it, it's probably like 20 whatever stitches that rib is normally done over. And I just changed it out. I usually put in like a different cable. I've done like the herringbone cable. I've done one where I've just done straight rib. I've done one where it's the decorative rib. But this particular cable is just like a really simple braided cable. But when I originally knit this, the cable that I knit was like a really simple cable, but you were cabling a lot of stitches. It was like cable like 10. And so when the pattern says like cable 10, you're splitting those 10 stitches in half, so 5 and 5, and you'll take 5 of the stitches and like bring it behind the others or bring it behind the front. And the cable looked really nice, but the thing was because you were cabling so many stitches around each other, was that the cable was super, super tight. And what ended up happening was the actual sweater, the length was fine, except in the front. So you can kind of see like just the tiniest bit that this is a little bit shorter than this ribbing over here. You probably can't see it that much because this is only like, this is a free cable pattern, so I want to say you only cable like 3 stitches. But what ended up happening was the body of the sweater was fine, but right at the front, because the cable was so tight, it pulled like the edges up like that. And so it was shorter in the front and longer in the back, and it drove me crazy. Whenever I wore it, I couldn't stand it. I tried to block it aggressively. Like, I blocked this with wires and pins, and like I pulled on it, and it was just because that cable was so tight. Like, it was just like everything was scrunched up in there. And so I ended up trying to unravel just like the cast on edge and trying to knit a little, like an inch more ribbing. And I just like ruined it. Like, because when you're knitting flat stockinette, you can't unravel it from the cast on edge because it's not like stockinette in the round. It's, flat stockinette. You have to unravel it from the top down. Otherwise it doesn't unravel. And so you will never get live stitches going from the bottom. And so there was just no way for me to salvage it. And I ended up pulling out the whole sweater. It sat in a bag for like 8 months. And I said I was going to do it over the summer, and then I didn't. But here's the thing, is that I love this yarn so much. And I just really wanted this sweater for the fall. And so, like, last week, I just said, to heck with it. And I ripped out the whole sweater over 1 inch of length. I tend to be that knitter that says, it doesn't bother me. And then I keep knitting, and then I will rip back inches and inches to fix a mistake if it bothers me. Sometimes mistakes don't bother me, but if it does bother me, it's like zero or 100. Like, it either doesn't bother me or it bothers me 100%, and I can't live my life without fixing it. And that's what happened with this sweater. Fortunately, this yarn is a thicker worsted weight, and it's a size 9 needle, so it knits up pretty fast. I only cast this on like Monday of last week, and it's already, like, I've already divided for the top part. So the yarn is called, the colorway is called Morning Dove, and the yarn is called Peace Fleece, and Peace Fleece is my favorite yarn in the whole wide world. Let me just hold it up so you can see it a little bit. So Peace Fleece, I believe, is 80% rambouillet and 20% mohair. So you can kind of see this little bit of a halo on it from the mohair. And the reason I love Peace Fleece is because, number one, it's only $12 for a 200-yard skein. And number two, the colors are beautiful. So just like look at all of these like tweeds and heathers in there. It's really lovely. So I have 2 other sweaters in Peace Fleece, and they are both this cardigan. They look different though. They're not like the same sweater. And what else do I have to say about Peace Fleece? Yeah, it's great yarn. They're out of a lot of colors right now. They because of COVID, something happened with their wool buy. So I don't know like where they're at in production with it. But their whole mission is like, it's called Peace Fleece because when it was founded, the owner bought, I think he bought his wool from Russia, and it was during when the Iron Curtain was still up, and it was supposed to be like a peaceful thing, and like the mohair came from the US, or maybe the mohair came from Russia, and so it was like merging the 2 fibers, and it was like peaceful. So today Russia isn't a part of it, but they buy the rambouillet, that I'm pretty sure it's rambouillet, but they buy it from Navajo farmers. So another just like nice gesture. And yeah, I just think it's so nice. And the colors are beautiful, and it's only like $60 to knit a sweater out of it. The one thing I would say is that it's not necessarily next to skin soft. So putting it on my neck, it does feel a little bit prickly. It definitely softens from the skein to when you block it. When you knit with this, it kind of feels, even on a size 9 needle, and it is, they say it's a worsted. I would say it's a heavier worsted. Not quite an Aran, but it's not like a true worsted. Because I think if you knit this on size 8 needles, it would like stand up. And even when you do knit this like on size 9s, you kind of see like it's not draping. So if you're knitting with this and you're like, wow, this sweater could stand up by itself, once you block it, it'll be fine. So what I was doing just to kind of like get it to lay nicer so it wasn't like scrunched up on my needles was I would hold the iron over it and just like hit the steam, and it like relaxes immediately. So this is Peace Fleece in the colorway Morning Dove. I love this colorway so much. It's like mauve, but so many other colors. I think they're out of it right now in the worsted base, and they still have it. They have a DK base that they just have a couple colors in, and they have this color in the DK. So I normally wear this with like a long sleeve t-shirt, and I don't feel any like itchiness. But if I put this on with a short sleeve t-shirt, which I've done, it's a little bit itchy. I've definitely put this on with a short sleeve t-shirt and been like, wow, that's wool. But as a cardigan with a long sleeve t-shirt, it's great, and this is such a warm cardigan. The only other thing I think I have to say about this pattern is that if you go and look up the pattern, you're probably going to like wonder what I'm even talking about, because this looks nothing like it. Like I said, I did change the textured rib to this gable panel. Also, the original cardigan is super long. It's like goes to your knees, and I didn't want that, but I like the shape of it. So I typically knit it, the body from the underarm, to the cast on edge. I knit it to be 18 inches. And I want to say in the original pattern, it says to knit like, I think it's like 28 or 32 inches. So I definitely don't do that. It is a sweater that has more positive ease, which again, I didn't totally want in the sweater. I just like the shape and style. So I think I always knit the second size in, which is less ease than the pattern recommends. And also the sleeves, the ribbing on the cuffs, the pattern has go a little bit longer, and I think they actually have you go up a needle size, which is a little weird for ribbing, to make it like a little more relaxed, which I also don't do. I think I still typically go down a ribbing size, like a needle size for the ribbing, just because that's how I like it. So those are the modifications I make when I knit this sweater. I think I'm probably going to do a podcast. Maybe it'll be, it won't be like a regular podcast, but I think I'm going to do one where I just show all of my sweaters, and I can, I'll show all my iterations of this sweater, all my 5 Edith sweaters in there, so you can see all the sweaters that I've done. I've done 3 of them are in Peace Fleece. But this is just such a great cardigan pattern. I'm actually knitting my mom this sweater it's like a navy blue, and it's a different yarn though, because she like only knits with the softest yarn. She thinks like alpaca is scratchy. She loves like that really chunky Malabrigo that's like super soft. So I'm not knitting a sweater for her in Peace Fleece. I'm knitting it in like it's like the Barocco like superwash wool, which also works nicely for this. But yeah, so maybe one day I'll make a Ravelry page, maybe, and I'll go over all the modifications I make for this pattern. But it is a super easy pattern. I want to say, like, when you have a knitting pattern, they do like the errata at the beginning, and then after that I think it's only 2 pages, because it really is like a simple cardigan to knit. It's a very simple construction. So if you need a good cardigan pattern, I highly recommend this one. And this will probably be finished by the next podcast. This tends to knit up pretty fast. So yeah, that is my Edith cardigan, heavily modified in Peace Fleece. I tend to be like a super monogamous knitter, mainly because I think I'm more of a product knitter, and I just really want whatever I'm knitting right now to wear, because I do truly wear everything that I knit. So I tend to really only knit one thing at a time, which is not super interesting for a podcast. But I thought I would talk about something I'm going to cast on. So for our knit along, I would really like to knit something and put it away for Christmas. I have this idea of not knitting anything for anyone else during the month of December, which is probably not going to happen because I should have been knitting that sweater for my mom right now, and I'm not. I'm knitting something for me, so I don't know. Let me just show you what I'm going to cast on real quick, and then I'll tell you a story time about one Christmas when none of the knitting got done. So this little duo here is going to be a hat, and I'm not going to say who I'm knitting it for because I don't know who watches this, but I am going to hold these double. I just thought this went so well. This is an old skein of Pearl Soho. It's their line weight, and the colorway was called Rose Quartz. I'm not sure what is going on with their line weight anymore. I don't know if this color is still on there, but it's this really lovely, like super dusty pink, and I thought it just went so well with this color. This color is called Current Mood, and it is by McMullen Fiber Co. And it just looks like a November day, doesn't it? I don't know, I just thought it was lovely, and I think these two together are going to be really nice. This yarn was gifted to me during not the last round of Fiber Share, the round before that. And it was actually by the person that dyes this yarn, and she happens to be from Ohio too. And I love this skein. It is a single ply superwash merino worsted. And yeah, when I got it, I knew I wanted to make a hat out of it. And I think this will be really nice for the person I'm going to knit it for. I'm going to knit the pattern that is called Pull the Wool Over. And it is a free pattern from Espace Tricot, which is a yarn store in Montreal. And they come out with all kinds of wonderful free patterns. And it's originally intended for like a bulky weight, but I think holding, fingering with a worsted will give me that gauge just fine. So I'm excited to cast this on, and this will definitely be cast on and finished before the knit along is over because, well, I have to participate in my own knit along, right? But it is just a really simple, easy hat. I did link it in the knit along Ravelry page if you want to knit it too. And yeah, I'm super excited to cast this on because it just, I don't know, the colors are just very, very November, and it's almost November. So I've done a tiny little bit of stash enhancement since the last episode. I don't even think I had any stash enhancement last episode, but I do this episode. It's not a ton. Don't want everyone thinking that I'm buying yarn all the time. Sometimes I am, but not all the time. So this little duo right here is from Hue Logo, and the only reason that this came into my life is because she was having 20% off sale, which is like never happens ever. I've never seen 20% off offered by her, and yarn dyers typically don't even have sales because it's like such a low, margin that you actually make on it because it's so labor intensive and it costs a lot, and so 20% off is kind of crazy. So this is one of her new colors. She does like a fall collection every year, and this colorway is called Honey. And I just thought, wow, look at that. So lovely. I think this is her, okay, I can just read the tag. I don't have to speculate. This is her merino sock, and this does look like a tiny skein. Your eyes are not deceiving you. It is a tiny skein. She does 50-gram skeins, which I love because even when you knit shawls, a lot of the time, like if you're using multiple colors, like you are not using that whole 400 yards. And it drives me crazy having yarn left over. Like I don't know what to do with my leftover yarn. I know like you can do blankets and stuff, but like actually storing it drives me crazy because it's like I already used you and now you're taking up space for my new yarn that I haven't used yet. And I don't know, I'm just running into a lot of issues with like half skeins of fingering weight yarn from that shawl that I made 2 years ago. Like, what am I going to do with that? You know, so these 50 gram skeins are nice because it's still 200 yards. And I think you can do a lot with that. I also grabbed one in this color called Velvet, which is from, I think, 2 years ago, or maybe it was just a year ago. It was her fall collection. But it's just this really nice, like almost purpley gray with all these little speckles in it. And I don't know if these go together necessarily, but they were 20% off and they were only half skeins, so I treated myself. And at the same time, I also bought this. And if you follow Loco, you know that she has chickens. And for a couple years now, she has been making sock sets inspired by chickens. So this sock set is inspired by a particular chicken called the Golden Spangled Hamburg. And you get a whole skein of yarn, which is this lovely kind of like coppery, cream, really dusty peach. This right down here, you can see it has some black speckles. And I've seen this knit up and it's really beautiful. And then you get these two little mini skeins, kind of a dusty pink and a charcoal, to do ear, heels, and toes with. This is her 75-25 superwash merino nylon base. And I'm gonna knit some socks out of this. I have not cast on a new pair of socks because I need to be knitting other things for Christmas. But when I do cast on socks, I think these will be that. I remember that in the last segment, I was going to tell you a story about the Christmas when none of the gift knitting happened. And I'm just going to share that story real quick. So that you don't have to be like me. So, this one Christmas, I had not knit a sweater yet. I was in college. I remember I just discovered Knit Picks and I bought a sweater's quantity of yarn, like going into college. And it was like this brown cotton yarn and I knit the Hannah Fettig Georgetown sweater, which is a gorgeous cardigan. And I knit it in the seamed option where you knit separate pieces. So I would like knit a piece, like toss it on the pile because it doesn't really look like a sweater and it's not very motivating. And I finally, like after my freshman year, I like seamed it all up and I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, this is a sweater. Like I knit sweaters now. Like I'm a big knitter in town. Like I do this. So I decided that Christmas that like I was just gonna knit things for people. Like those were my gifts for everyone. Were going to be knitted items. And I fell behind. I knit my dad a blanket, which I finished. But blankets take forever. And I finished that and finished nothing else. I was supposed to knit a half for my brother. Nope. I was supposed to knit a fingering weight cardigan for my mom. And I remember it was Christmas Eve. And I'm like, I can knit this tonight. I just won't sleep. It was a fingering weight cardigan. Like, okay, first of all, okay, maybe not even a worsted weight sweater in the round could I finish in one night having it not cast on at all. But like, just like, I guess I just didn't have a grasp of like the time that things took. And so I gifted people the yarn. I just had them close their eyes. I'm like, here's your Christmas present that I didn't finish. Here's the yarn. Sorry, I'll get around to it. So after that, I became much more reserved in what I've decided to knit for Christmas. And I realized that you need to start much earlier than December. Not that I'm heeding my own advice right now, but like I know now like how long it'll take. Like I know how long I can play this game for. I can still play it a little bit more. I'm still playing it right now. I didn't know that at the time when I just gave people unfinished, not even cast on projects for Christmas. So that was related to something. Don't procrastinate if you're giving Christmas gifts, is my point, and why I had this knit along. So the point was that I'm not casting on this amazing sock set because I need to knit things for other people right now. But it is beautiful, and I'm happy that I got it because it's 20% off. And I only have one more stash acquisition. It is another skein of sock yarn. And wow, look at those colors. So if you've been here for a little while, you've probably heard me talk about my other national park socks, the Something Mountain socks. I can't remember what mountains the colorway is named after, but this is by Mustache Yarns, and she has been doing a collection of national parks inspired colorways. I knit up the previous sock set, and she just did another one, and the colorway is called Grand Canyon. And I hope you can see all these colors in here. I think it's going to be really lovely. I think it's kind of meant to be like the Grand Canyon at sunset, perhaps. And these will probably get cast on after these. I am considering sending out some of my sock yarn to get skeined up. Not skeined up, tubed up. There are people out there who own circular sock machines that just crank out the tubes for you, and you can add in your afterthought heel and toes, and you add your cuffs, and it takes away some of the time of knitting your socks because you just get that stockinette tube already made for you. My only hesitation and why I haven't done it yet is because I do tend to like the fit of a heel flapping gusset. And I've kind of thought about, and that's a heel that's more difficult to add on after the fact. It might be impossible. I like that fit better than the afterthought heel. So, I don't know. I feel like what I could do is I could get the tube and I could cut the tube for the top of the sock. Hold on, let me just grab this sock so I can explain. So I could like cut it here and then do the heel flap and that. And then what gets a little tricky is that you still have to knit the gusset. So you can't just like add on another sock tube right there. But I think what I could do is I could knit the gusset and then I could Kitchener stitch the rest of the tube to it. It kind of seems like a lot of work though, like more work than just doing the afterthought heel. So I haven't decided what I want to do because like with the afterthought heel, sometimes I find that, you know, they kind of fall off my feet. I'm sure there's a better way to knit them. So I don't I love this yarn and I wanted it for a long time. So I don't want to knit a pair of socks that I know I won't absolutely love with it, which is why I haven't sent it out yet to be tubed up. And I also love this one too, so I just want them to fit really well. So maybe I'll research some better ways to do the afterthought heel, and then maybe I'll send this out to get tubed up into sock skein so I can have these socks quicker. But that's all the stash acquisition that I have today. So this brings us to the end of another episode of Speckled Red Knits, and I'm so glad that you stopped by to hear my stories of failed Christmas knits. I'm trying to podcast more often. I've kind of realized that a month is a little long because I feel like I just show you sweaters that are almost finished, and then the next podcast I show you the finished sweater and then a new sweater whip that's mostly finished. So there's not a whole lot of like construction of the sweater talk happening. So I'm trying to do this a little more often. I think this episode is coming out more frequently than they have in the past. So I'm trying to do like, I don't want to say every 2 weeks because that's a commitment, but you should be seeing episodes a little bit quicker from me. Again, if you need any links, if you need link to my Instagram, if you need link to my Etsy shop, because you don't want to wait to maybe win that pumpkin bag, you want to grab one right now. That link will be down below. The links for the knit-alongs will also be down below. The knit-along is supposed to end November 1st, which is coming up. I can't even believe that. It's almost November. So the knit-along should be finished probably by the next podcast. So if you need to enter, just make sure you do that before November 1st. I might let it go a couple more days because the last podcast was late to upload. So if it's November 2nd, don't worry. Still throw your picture up there. Again, to enter, you just have to throw a picture up on the Ravelry link and just tell us what you made and who it's going to. And the answer can be for you. That's okay. So yes, if you want to join the knit-along, you can do so. There are still bags left from the last shop update if you're interested, if you need a new project bag, if you want to get something for Christmas. And the links to all of that are down below. And hopefully I will be seeing you all a little bit sooner than the last podcast. And keep a lookout for my special edition sweater podcast that I haven't made yet, but I think I'm going to make very soon. So you can see all of my sweaters that I reference frequently. And I'll see you next time.